right, so we got this gem unloaded. This thing is kind of a pile, actually. The longer I look at it, the more stuff I'm finding that kind of makes me not want to dig in too far, but it'll be worth putting the exhaust on it. So this in straight from Amazon here. All right, so these Chinese exhausts, they are definitely not meant for the three-wheeler, but they do seem to work pretty good with a little bit of chopping and modifying. So we're gonna go through the entire process of how to put it on, what parts I chop. You open it up, you get the head pipe, and essentially all you really end up working with is the head pipe that wraps around the cylinder, and the super cheap cool exhaust pipe. Just a straight through design. There's literally nothing to it. It does help. It sounds decent. So all we're gonna do is mount the tailpipe, mount the head pipe. We end up cutting it right after this fake power bomb thing. I'll show you that when we get into it. There's nothing in there. They just slide it over and weld it. These kits are not great. It's essentially just the tubing to get you from point A to point B. So yeah, we're gonna bolt it up there, show you where to cut. Oh, we just checked for spark. It does have spark, so that's kind of a good thing. That's one positive to it. You got to rip the fender off so you can access all that stuff. Hopefully these bolts come off of the head okay, holding the exhaust pipe on, because if those break off, that's fun. But yeah, we're going to get this thing torn apart and get that pipe welded in there. And we're ripping the tank off too. This tank has a poorly done liner inside, so we're gonna replace that with a different one. All right, we got the whole side of this thing taken off so you can actually see the factory exhaust. Almost every single one of these that I've done has been rusted out in a couple different places. They sound terrible. They don't really let the engine breathe. And on top of it, they're just kind of crusty. So we're gonna get the stock pipe out of here and show you how we put in that China junk. These things actually came out. I did not expect them to. This machine looks like it came out of the bottom of a pond, which is right where we're gonna put it back into one. But until then, it's kind of terrible to work on. Nothing's coming apart real sweet, but factory head pipe came off, so that's awesome. All right, so a quick comparison on the two pipes. You can see the bend is fairly close going from the head around the cylinder, and that's basically what we're working with. This kit for the 99 bucks or whatever they are, it basically just gives you the bend that you need to connect it to the head and the exhaust pipe. And then we use all the leftover tubing plus this other piece here. It gives you enough tubing that you can cut it up and make the connection between the head pipe and the exhaust, or the muffler. So it is a fairly close fit. I'm pretty excited about that. You can kind of see. So I'm gonna get the muffler mounted up, and we'll kind of lightly bolt this in and see where we're gonna have to make a couple splices. And the muffler is bolted up. We had to use a small little spacer to push off of the frame a little bit. That's just something we had laying around the shop. And the head pipe is bolted to the cylinder head, and that leaves us this space right here. And this is where the chopping and cutting's gotta happen in order to connect the dots. So the kit gives you this chunk of pipe here. You're gonna do what we can with it. Get it all cut apart and get these two fitting together. All right, so now that we've got the muffler mounted up, the head pipe is just loosely set in there. It's kind of nice and floppy so you can figure out where it's gotta go. This is the connector piece, and it does not connect the two. This is where we're gonna have to start chopping and hacking things apart. It is fairly close when you look at it. There's plenty of slop in here. So what I'm gonna do, make the first cut about halfway up on the tail, or the head pipe here. And then we're also gonna cut this bracket off right away. This thing is just gonna be in the way, we're not gonna need it. So we're cutting that off. We're gonna slice it here. And then I think we might end up doing another cut to take maybe an inch or two out in the middle. And then we can kind of fit all these tubes together. We're gonna start tacking them up, and we should have an exhaust system here pretty quick. it still isn't quite lining up 100%. So we're gonna go through, it needs to get clocked a little bit right here. So I'm gonna cut kind of right at this factory weld. That way we can rotate this pipe a little bit. And then we should be able to make the connection. I think we're still gonna need to do a cut to rotate a piece of pipe in here, but it is getting pretty close. We'll show you what we're looking at after we get this piece cut. All right, so after a bunch of tacking and fitting and chopping tubes up, we got the exhaust. It's kind of looking like it's there. We got to pull it apart and finish welding everything. But as you can see, I mean, there was a lot of cutting and splicing to happen to make sure it actually fit through, because I don't want it rattling on the frame here. I can't melt the air box and also miss up in here. So the 200E and the 200ES are definitely the more complicated ones because of the air box. They always seem tighter going through there. The 185 and 200S, they always seem to pop in a little bit easier, at least on the ones I've done. Maybe China bends their tubes different each time. I don't really know. But yeah, this one took quite a few bends. We're gonna get this thing all welded up, and then Brian's throwing in a different carburetor, 30mm China one. So we're gonna go China on both sides of the motor and see how this thing runs. All right, so we got pretty much everything is kind of tacked. I welded around most of it. I try to do most of the welding when everything is locked in place because it is gonna pull when we weld it on the table. So we're gonna rip it apart now, finish welding around the back sides of all these seams, get everything put together. It should be pretty good. It's actually, this one there's a few more bends and cuts in it, but it's actually going pretty good. All right, so we pulled the pipe out, finished up welding everything. We ended up having to split this thing in 7 places to get proper fitment. Yeah, it's definitely a lot of work, but for a $99 exhaust system, it's fairly close, and I think it's gonna sound pretty good. I've done a couple of these now, so it's gonna be pretty awesome. Carburetor's in. We just gotta finish bolting up that exhaust, throw the back wheel on, and take this thing for a spin. All right, this is gonna be the most unpopular part of what we do here today. This seam where they connect, I'm just gonna weld that. There's not enough room to get a clamp in there. And this typically how I do them is I'll just weld them all into one solid piece. And you can still get the motor out. You just loosen it up and flop it over to the other side. But yeah, I'm gonna throw a few good tacks on there. It is nice and tight, so it ain't gonna leak. But a couple tacks to keep it in place. And the motor should still be able to come out. And worst case, we do have to cut it if we ever have to take the motor out. But not gonna worry about that today. All right, we got this thing put back together. It's looking pretty perfect. You think it'll start? No way. This thing literally sat in the back corner of this guy's pole barn forever. The exhaust is on. It's sounding pretty decent. Woo. Might be time to go take it for a spin. That might be super lean or just really cheap stainless.
Lean is mean.
Oh, wow. All right, so the China exhaust is a success. It's kind of a pain to put in. It's a lot more chopping and welding than you probably want to do, but it sounds good, it works good, it's cheap. It beats a rusty stock system. The plan for this 200E, we're gonna do a 6-inch lift, 30-inch tires, kind of do the full build on it with using all the Swamp Outlet products. So if you have questions on rear lift install, how to weld in the sleeves on these 200E and ES front forks, this is the welding style. I want to do these specifically so we can show you how to set ride height, how to weld them in right the first time. If you have any questions on any of that stuff, shoot me a message, because we're going to be doing an in-depth build on pretty much every part of this. So, shoot me a message if there's anything you want to see. Make sure to follow along, because this thing is going to be a pretty cool build when we're all done with it.